In the late 1700s, William Morris stood at a crossroads. A seasoned navigator of the Continental Navy, he had experienced the full weight of war, loss, and separation. The Revolutionary War had tested his strength and resolve, but it had also stolen something much more precious, time and peace with his beloved wife, Lucy. The war had pulled them apart, shattering their dreams of a quiet, settled life. They had once dreamed of a future filled with simple joys, a home, laughter, and the peace of shared moments. But the war had stolen that future, and all William had left were memories. William's story began amidst the aftermath of Saratoga. The battle, which had been a crucial victory for the American cause, was still fresh in the minds of many. Yet for William, the taste of victory felt bittersweet. While the country celebrated, his heart ached for the life he had left behind. As the fleet prepared to sail from the battlefield, he found himself aboard a warship bound for Charleston. The sky was clear, the moon shining brightly overhead as he stood at the helm, gripping the wheel with steady hands. The Atlantic stretched before him, its vastness both calming and isolating. The stillness of the night was eerie, almost as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. The waves whispered against the ship's hull, and the wind carried a coolness that bit at his skin. But despite the peace of the moment, William's mind was far from tranquil. He thought of Lucy, her face as vivid in his memory as if she was standing beside him now. He remembered their final moments together before he left. Her tearful eyes, the strength in her voice as she told him she would be waiting for his safe return. But that seemed like a lifetime ago. As he gazed out over the dark waters, the ship's sails caught the wind, carrying them farther from home and deeper into the unknown. The silence around him was deafening, and for a moment he wondered if his journey would ever bring him back to her. Would the war ever truly end for him, or would it continue to tear at the fabric of his life? And if he returned, would Lucy still be there? Would they ever be able to rebuild the life they had dreamed of, or had the war taken that from them as well? William's mind raced with questions, yet there were no answers on the horizon. All he had was the sea and the ship beneath his feet. The Atlantic, stretching endlessly into the night, seemed to hold all the mysteries of the world, some of them within his reach, others just out of grasp. And so, with a heavy heart and a resolve forged in the fires of war, William Morris continued his journey, hoping for a future he could barely see, and a reunion he feared might never come. The secret of the map. After the war, William returned to a shattered home. The walls that once echoed with laughter were now silent. His wife, Lucy, had succumbed to a lingering illness during his absence, and the house felt colder without her. The dreams they had shared of a peaceful life had slipped through his fingers, leaving him with only memories and grief. It was a cruel reminder that, while the war had ended, the battle within him raged on. Clinging to his love for navigation, William threw himself into the only thing that still gave him a sense of purpose, the sea. He took to the water not for battles or wars, but for the solace it offered, the comfort of the endless horizon. But no matter how far he sailed, the wound of loss remained raw, gnawing at him, always reminding him that the life he had once dreamed of was gone. One late afternoon, while sorting through old naval records that had gathered dust in the corner of his study, something caught William's eye. It was a forgotten chest, wedged behind a pile of old logs and papers. Intrigued, he opened it, his hands trembling as he uncovered an ancient map, yellowed with age and creased at the edges. It seemed out of place, a relic of a time long past. yet it held a strange allure. The map was unlike any he had ever seen before. Its edges were marked with strange symbols, and the sea was drawn with a level of detail that only a few sailors had ever dared to chart. But what truly drew his attention was what lay beyond the Antarctic ice walls, an uncharted land, a place that no sailor had ever returned from. As he examined the map, William felt a sense of both awe and unease. The symbols were cryptic, foreign, as if they were written by a hand that knew the sea's secrets in a way no other had. The map was covered with strange annotations in a language he didn't recognize, suggesting that the land beyond the ice was not merely a desolate, frozen wilderness, but something far more important, even sacred. There were whispered tales of lost civilizations, ancient knowledge, and powers so immense that they had shaped the course of humanity itself. William's heart raced. His mind, so long clouded with grief, felt a spark of hope flicker. Could this map lead him to something more than just a destination? Could it offer answers to the questions he had buried deep within himself for so long? The thought of uncovering something forgotten by time, something that could change the world, filled him with an urgency he hadn't felt in years. The map called to him, beckoning him to venture into the unknown. For the first time in a long while, William felt the stirrings of a new mission. His journey now had a purpose beyond the horizon. He would uncover the secrets of the map, no matter where they led. The pull to discover what lay beyond the ice walls was irresistible. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, William knew that this map was not just a relic of the past. It was the key to a future that might hold the answers he had been searching for. With the weight of the map in his hands, he felt the stirring of an old, familiar excitement. The sea had always been his home, but now it was more than just a refuge. It was a path to something greater, something unknown. The winds of fate had shifted, and William Morris was ready to sail once more. Driven by the mystery of the ancient map, William felt a renewed sense of purpose burning within him. For the first time in years, he no longer felt like a man lost in grief. The idea of embarking on a journey to uncover secrets no one had ever dreamed of ignited something deep inside. This map, with its cryptic symbols and hidden lands beyond the Antarctic ice, promised the possibility of a discovery so extraordinary that it could change everything. With that vision in his heart, William knew he had to act. He made a bold decision. He would sell everything he had, everything he owned, to fund the expedition. His house, his belongings, his memories, gone. But none of it mattered anymore. The treasure was not in possessions, but in the adventure that lay ahead. As the money poured in from the sale, William began assembling his crew. He sought out only the most capable men, those with experience navigating the harshest waters, and those with the courage to follow him into the unknown. Each man was hand-picked for his skills, from seasoned sailors to skilled navigators, and even a doctor in case of emergencies. They weren't just joining a journey, they were joining a quest to answer questions that had haunted humanity for centuries. William knew that it wouldn't be easy, but with his crew by his side, he felt ready for whatever lay ahead. After weeks of preparation, the expedition was ready. The ship, a sturdy brig named the Endeavour, was packed with supplies, food, water, medical provisions, and everything else they would need to survive the harsh conditions of the South. The ship's timbers were strong, built to withstand the unrelenting forces of the ocean, but William knew the real test lay ahead. The voyage into the icy unknown was dangerous, but it was a risk worth taking. The crew stood at the docks, their eyes filled with a mix of excitement and fear as the Endeavour prepared to set sail. The cold wind whipped through the harbour, but William's gaze was fixed on the horizon, his heart steady with determination. The world was about to change, and he was the one leading the charge. As the ship left the safety of the harbour, the sea seemed to open up before them, vast and endless. But the further they sailed, the more the landscape shifted. The once clear skies began to darken with clouds, and the temperature dropped rapidly. Icebergs began to appear on the horizon, towering like ghostly giants that loomed out of the mist, their jagged edges like teeth waiting to bite. The sea itself felt colder, as though the very waters were warning them to turn back. But William was undeterred. The mystery of the map, the promise of discovery, burned brightly in his chest. Every time the crew whispered doubts about the dangers ahead, he silenced them with a firm but reassuring voice. "We are not turning back," he would say. "Not now. We will find what lies beyond the ice, no matter the cost." The crew grew more nervous with each passing day, their resolve beginning to falter. They had heard the stories, the legends of sailors who ventured into the icy unknown, only to disappear without a trace. No one had ever come back. The idea of the ice walls holding secrets was enticing, but the fear of never returning grew stronger with every wave. But William's determination never wavered. He knew that to find something truly extraordinary, to uncover a land that no one had ever seen before, they would need to push through the impossible. The cold, the storms, the ice, they were nothing compared to the pull of what lay beyond. Weeks turned into months, and the further they traveled, the more the crew began to question their captain's sanity. The sea was unforgiving, and with each new obstacle, the tension on board grew. Whispers spread among the men, but William continued to steer the Endeavour with confidence. Every night, he would study the map again, tracing the symbols with his fingers, as if the answers were hidden in the worn paper. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the icy waters, William gathered his crew on deck. The men, their faces etched with fatigue, waited for him to speak. William stood tall, his voice calm but firm as he addressed them. "I know you're afraid. I am too. But remember why we set out. We are searching for something that could change the world. And we will not give up, not now." His words, though simple, were enough to remind the crew why they had joined this journey in the first place. They were here for something greater than themselves. Despite the doubts creeping into their hearts, they had signed up for an adventure, and they weren't about to turn back now. Slowly, but surely, their courage returned. The journey southward was perilous, but each man found a renewed sense of purpose. The closer they sailed to the Antarctic ice walls, the more the crew realized they were on the brink of something incredible. They had no idea what lay beyond the ice, but they were determined to find out. The mystery of the map had driven them this far, and there was no turning back. As the Endeavour cut through the frozen waters, they knew they were approaching the unknown. The icebergs grew larger, more menacing, and the temperature plummeted further. Yet the sense of adventure surged within them all. Whatever they would face next, they would face it together. Crossing the Antarctic ice walls, the Endeavour cut through the icy waters, the crew growing ever more anxious as the towering walls of ice rose before them. They had heard the legends, the stories of explorers who had attempted to cross these uncharted boundaries only to vanish into the unknown. The walls were a silent, imposing barrier that seemed impossible to breach, stretching endlessly into the sky, their frozen peaks reflecting the harsh sun like jagged, glittering teeth. The sight of them left the crew silent, their breaths visible in the cold air. Even the seasoned sailors who had faced many dangers in their careers felt a sense of awe mixed with fear. The ice was more than just a physical challenge. It was a force that had withstood centuries, guarding secrets that perhaps were never meant to be discovered. But William, standing at the bow of the ship, felt only determination. He could see it in his mind, the land beyond, the treasure of knowledge and discovery that lay waiting. His eyes burned with the fire of ambition, a fire that had carried him this far, through every obstacle, every doubt. "We'll cross it," William said, his voice strong against the wind. "We will find what's on the other side." With his unwavering confidence, the crew rallied together. They prepared their ropes, pulleys, and ice picks, knowing this would be no easy feat. The ship anchored safely in a bay, and the crew set to work. The first step was to find a path up the ice walls. The cliff face was steep, slick, and treacherous, but the crew was experienced. They dug into the ice with all their strength, setting anchor points to begin the slow ascent. The climb was harder than anyone had imagined. The icy walls seemed to resist them, the cold seeping deep into their bones, making each step more difficult than the last. Winds howled around them, forcing the climbers to brace themselves against the biting cold. Yet, despite the exhaustion, there was a fire within them, a belief that what awaited on the other side was worth every drop of sweat, every ounce of energy. As the days wore on, the climb grew more difficult. The team was tired, their hands and faces frozen from the relentless winds. Doubt crept into their minds, but they pushed it aside. Every time they thought of turning back, William's steady resolve kept them going. He would stand at the top of the climb each evening, gazing over the vast expanse, knowing that beyond the ice was a world that would change everything. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the top. One by one, they pulled themselves over the ice lip and into a world that no human had ever laid eyes on before. The crew stood in stunned silence, their mouths agape. Before them stretched an extraordinary sight, a lush green valley bathed in a light that was both strange and beautiful. The air, though still crisp, was warmer than they had ever known in the frozen wasteland they had just crossed. The landscape seemed to shimmer with a soft golden glow, as though the land itself was alive with energy. There were no signs of human civilization, no cities, no structures, only nature in its purest, most untamed form. Massive trees with strange, shimmering leaves towered over them, casting long, delicate shadows. Flowers in brilliant hues, unlike any they had ever seen, bloomed along the ground. Towering cliffs lined the far edge of the valley, but instead of ice, they were made of smooth, polished stone that seemed to sparkle under the ethereal light. As the crew ventured further into the valley, they began to notice creatures, some large, others small, that seemed to move with an almost otherworldly grace. Strange, gentle beasts with fur that shimmered like the night sky wandered peacefully through the lush grass. Birds with iridescent feathers flew overhead, their calls echoing in the otherwise silent world. It was a place untouched by time, a land that felt as if it had never been touched by human hands, a place so far removed from the world they knew that it seemed almost like a dream. William stood in awe, his heart racing as he took in the sight. This was what he had dreamed of, what he had risked everything to find. It was not just the discovery of a new land, but the discovery of something far greater, a glimpse into a world beyond imagination, a world that defied everything they thought they knew about the Earth. "This is it," William whispered, his voice filled with wonder. This is the beginning of something extraordinary. The crew, though exhausted, could not help but share in his awe. They had crossed the impossible. They had climbed the ice walls and stepped into a new world, one that was beyond anything they had ever imagined. But as they ventured deeper into the valley, a new question began to form in their minds. What secrets did this land hold? What dangers awaited them in this unexplored world? The adventure had only just begun. As the explorers journeyed deeper into the hidden valley, they began to feel a shift in the air. It wasn't just the warm sunlight or the peaceful sounds of the valley. There was something more, something ancient and powerful. The trees whispered in the wind, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with energy. After days of trekking through the lush landscape, they finally came across a clearing, a vast, open space with a glowing, ethereal light that seemed to come from nowhere. In the center of the clearing, standing like silent sentinels, were beings unlike anything the explorers had ever imagined. These figures were tall, graceful, and radiated a soft, glowing light. Their skin shimmered with an iridescent hue, and their eyes held an endless depth, as though they could see into the very soul of anyone who met their gaze. At first, the explorers were frozen, unsure whether to approach or retreat. But something in the air, the peacefulness, the overwhelming sense of calm, urged them to step forward. As they did, the beings didn't speak in the traditional sense. Instead, the explorers felt a sudden surge of thoughts and emotions flood their minds. It wasn't words but understanding, an instant connection. The beings who introduced themselves as the Aeons were communicating telepathically. The Aeons explained that they had been living in isolation for millennia, hidden from the rest of the world. They had once been part of a great civilization that spanned the globe, a civilization that had lived in harmony with nature and had mastered the forces of the earth. They spoke of a time long before human history was written, when their people had harnessed technologies that could shape the very elements. They had lived in peace, understanding the universe in ways the explorers could never have imagined. But with the passing of time, the Aeons revealed their civilization had fallen. They told stories of how greed and arrogance had spread through their ranks. The very powers they had harnessed for good had been twisted for selfish purposes. A great war had erupted, destroying cities and shattering their unity. The world had been left in chaos, and the Aeons had barely survived. It was then that they shared their most guarded secret. The towering ice walls that had protected this valley for so long had been created by their ancestors as a barrier against the outside world. They had built these walls not just to keep others out, but to shield their knowledge and people from the destruction that had nearly wiped them out. Only those who were worthy, those who had the courage to venture through the harsh conditions, could pass through the ice and discover the truth. "You have crossed the barrier," the leader of the Aeons communicated, "because you possess something rare, the ability to see beyond what is visible. You seek answers to questions that have been lost to time, and it is this thirst for truth that has brought you here." The explorers, still overwhelmed by the enormity of what they were hearing, exchanged glances. They had set out seeking adventure and discovery, but now they realized they had stumbled upon something far greater than they could have imagined. This wasn't just a lost land. This was a place that held the key to humanity's forgotten past. It was a chance to understand the origins of their own world, to glimpse what had been lost in the wake of time. The Aeons began to show the explorers the remnants of their ancient knowledge, crystal-clear maps of the Earth depicting landscapes long since vanished, books filled with writings that spoke of advanced technologies and philosophies that had been lost to history. The explorers marveled at the wisdom of the aeons, realizing that they were standing on the edge of uncovering a truth that could change everything. But the aeons also warned them. The knowledge you seek is powerful, and with power comes great responsibility. The same arrogance that led to our absorbing the weight of their words. They had come seeking discovery, but now they were tasked with something far greater, the responsibility of understanding and preserving a truth that had been hidden for centuries. As they looked out over the valley, the explorers knew that their lives would never be the same. They had discovered the aeons, and with it the lost history of a once great civilization. It was a gift, but also a challenge, one that they would have to carry with them, knowing that the future of humanity might depend on how they chose to use what they had learned. In the days that followed, the explorers and the aeons shared knowledge, learning from each other and growing closer as they uncovered the deep connection between the Earth, the cosmos, and the long-lost civilizations that had once walked the planet. The ice walls had not only protected the secrets of the aeons, but now they stood as a reminder of the delicate balance between knowledge and power, and the responsibility to protect that which was sacred. And so, the journey of discovery continued as the explorers stood on the threshold of a new era, one filled with endless possibilities and the weight of ancient wisdom. Ancient secrets and powers. During their time with the aeons, William and his crew uncovered secrets that shattered everything they thought they knew about the world. The aeons, with their timeless wisdom, began to reveal to them the deep mysteries of the Earth and the universe itself. The explorers were shown artifacts, ancient scrolls, and technologies so advanced that they seemed impossible, yet here they were, proof of a lost civilization's power. One of their most astonishing discoveries was the Tesseract engine. It was a device like no other, a creation that could bend the very fabric of space and time. The Aeons explained that this engine, once a core part of their civilization, had the ability to manipulate the universe itself, transforming the flow of time, opening gateways to distant places, and even altering the laws of nature. But now, after centuries of disuse, it lay dormant, its power sealed away. It was a reminder of the extraordinary capabilities the Aeons once had, and the dangerous potential it held for those who could harness it again. The explorers listened in awe as the Aeons shared the ancient scrolls, pages upon pages filled with knowledge that described the birth of the Earth, the manipulation of time, and the hidden forces that shaped every part of existence. These scrolls spoke of civilizations that had come and gone, and the role the Aeons had played in guiding them. The Aeons revealed that throughout history, humanity's reality had been subtly shaped by invisible hands, forces both natural and technological that had nudged the course of history in specific directions. These forces had been present for millennia, weaving a hidden thread through time. But the Aeons weren't just sharing secrets of the past, they were offering a warning for the future. They spoke of Earth's ancient energies, which, if properly understood and used, could bring about a new era of prosperity. These energies had the potential to heal the planet, cure diseases, and even unlock a deeper connection between humanity and the universe. However, they made it clear that such power could only be used wisely. Humanity, they explained, would have to rise above its past mistakes, greed, violence, and arrogance. Only if humanity could learn to use the knowledge with humility and respect for the delicate balance of nature would they unlock the potential for a brighter future. As William and his team delved deeper into the Aeon's teachings, they realized the gravity of what they were witnessing. The Tesseract engine wasn't just a relic, it was a symbol of a greater truth, that humanity stood on the edge of either great enlightenment or disaster. The knowledge they had uncovered was both a gift and a challenge, one that would force them to confront not only the ancient secrets of the Earth, but also the very nature of power itself. The explorers now faced a question that would shape their future. Would they be able to rise above the mistakes of the past, to use the power of the Aeons wisely and guide humanity toward a new dawn? Or would they fall prey to the same greed and arrogance that had caused the fall of the Aeon's civilization? The answers lay in the ancient knowledge they held and in their ability to understand the true nature of the forces that had shaped their world. What they did with this knowledge could either elevate humanity to new heights or plunge it into an even darker age than before. The Aeons had given them the key, but the future was still uncertain, and the weight of the decision lay heavily on their shoulders. As the explorers began to understand the immense power they had uncovered, they also realized that their journey had only just begun. The Tesseract engine, the secrets of time, and the mysteries of the universe were now in their hands. But what they did with that knowledge could change the world forever. The warning and the return. As William and his crew prepared to leave the hidden sanctum of the Aeons, the air around them felt heavy with the weight of the knowledge they had just uncovered. They stood at the edge of the vast ancient chamber, the Tesseract engine pulsing quietly behind them. The Aeons, standing in their timeless wisdom, gathered around them one last time, their faces etched with concern. The leader of the Aeons stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. You have uncovered truths that have been hidden for eons, truths that could change the course of humanity's future, but you must understand, this knowledge is not for everyone. His eyes locked with William's. Humanity is not yet ready to wield this kind of power. William felt a chill run down his spine as the weight of the Aeon's words settled in. He had seen the wonders and dangers of the ancient civilization firsthand, the Tesseract engine, the scrolls, the artifacts. But now, as the reality of what they had uncovered began to sink in, he realized the immense responsibility that came with such power. The Aeons continued, their voices filled with sorrow. The fall of our civilization was not a result of time or fate. It was the greed, the division, and the misuse of knowledge that led to our downfall. We were once a great people, but we allowed the power we had uncovered to corrupt us. They looked at each other as if haunted by memories of their lost world. If you reveal these secrets to the wrong hands, history will repeat itself, the Aeon leader warned. The forces you have unlocked could bring about a new age of prosperity, or they could destroy everything. There was a long silence as William and his crew absorbed the gravity of the warning. The excitement they had felt upon uncovering the mysteries of the past now seemed distant, replaced by a growing sense of responsibility. They had discovered a world of unimaginable power, but they could not let that power fall into the wrong hands. With heavy hearts, they gathered their belongings, preparing for their return. The Aeons, sensing their unease, offered a final gift, an ancient crystalline orb. It glowed softly in the dim light, its surface shimmering with patterns that seemed to shift and change with every movement. This orb, the Aeons explained, contained the ancient records of their civilization. It was a key, a link to humanity's forgotten past, and a reminder of the path they must now walk. William held the orb in his hands, feeling its weight, both physical and metaphorical. It was beautiful, but it was also a burden. The orb contained the knowledge of the Aeons, everything they had learned about time, space, and the universe. But it also carried the responsibility of protecting that knowledge from misuse. As they said their goodbyes, the crew was reluctant to leave the Aeons behind. The Aeons had shared so much with them, secrets of the universe, the ancient technologies, and the potential to change the world. But now they understood that the true challenge lay not in the discovery of these secrets, but in their careful preservation. With a final glance at the Aeons, William and his crew made their way out of the sanctum and back into the world they had left behind. The sky above was darkening, signaling the end of their journey into the unknown. The orb, now safely in their possession, would serve as both a key to the future and a reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. As they traveled back, William couldn't help but wonder if humanity would ever be ready for the kind of knowledge the Aeons had left behind. He knew that the choice was no longer his alone to make. The world would have to decide whether to embrace the potential of the Aeon's secrets or fall victim to the same mistakes that had brought about the fall of their civilization. The road ahead was uncertain, and the weight of the orb in his hands reminded him that the real journey had only just begun. The return to civilization. The journey back to civilization felt as difficult as the one that had taken them into the unknown. The ocean stretched out before them, calm, yet carrying the weight of their discoveries. William and his crew, exhausted but determined, held their heads high. They carried not only the knowledge of an ancient civilization, but also the mysterious orb that pulsed with an energy that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. It gave them strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. When they finally arrived back at port, they were greeted with a mix of excitement and skepticism. The city was bustling, but the moment they stepped off the ship, it was clear that no one believed their incredible tale. The stories of the hidden world, the Aeons, being so ancient and wise, sounded like something out of a dream. Many people in the bustling port town shook their heads, laughing at what they thought was just a madman's fantasy. William tried to tell them about the advanced civilization he had discovered, the knowledge they had left behind, and the warnings they had shared about the dangers of power and greed. He spoke passionately, but his words were often met with scoffs. "What nonsense!" some shouted. Others called him a fool for imagining such things. But among the doubters, there were a few who saw the orb. When William held it up, its strange glow and the intricate patterns on its surface left them speechless. The orb wasn't just a piece of stone or treasure, it was proof. It was evidence that what William had experienced was real. It contained the wisdom and history of the Aeons, a people who had mastered knowledge far beyond what anyone in the world knew. Though many dismissed his story, William's writings, filled with vivid descriptions of his journey and the wisdom of the Aeons, would eventually find their way into the hands of curious minds. Over time, those who once mocked him would come to realize that he had uncovered something extraordinary. The orb would remain in the hands of a few trusted scholars who understood its power. The knowledge it contained was far too precious to be discarded or lost. For years, William's story was just that, another myth to be told around campfires or in quiet circles. But slowly, his accounts inspired a new generation of thinkers. Young explorers, eager to make their own discoveries, studied his writings. Scientists began to piece together the ancient knowledge, sparking ideas that would change the course of history. The warnings from the aeons once dismissed began to resonate more clearly. As humanity advanced, the seeds of discovery planted by William's journey began to grow. The mistakes the aeons had made in their time served as a cautionary tale. Those who came after William, armed with the knowledge he had left behind, would use it to forge a better future. William's journey, his discoveries, and the orb that had once seemed so unbelievable now became the foundation for something much greater. The world he returned to had been skeptical, but the truth had a way of finding its place, even when the world was not ready to hear it. William's name may have been forgotten by many in his time, but the impact of his discoveries would shape the world for centuries to come. His legacy, though humble in his own lifetime, would inspire generations to look deeper, to question what they knew, and to explore the mysteries that lay hidden just beyond the reach of ordinary understanding. The knowledge of the aeons, though buried for centuries, would one day rise again, changing the course of history in ways no one could have imagined. William's journey was not just a tale of discovery. It was the beginning of a new age of exploration, learning, and understanding, a future built on the foundations of the past. Loss and grief. William's journey began in a world already shattered by war, but it was his personal loss that truly ignited his need for something greater. His wife, Lucy, had been his anchor in a chaotic world, but she was taken from him far too soon. Her death left a hole in his heart, and the pain of losing her pushed him to search for meaning, for something that could fill the emptiness. He wasn't just running from grief, though. He was searching for answers to the questions he couldn't ask her anymore. Why was the world so broken? Why was he left alone to deal with the sorrow? And what was the purpose of it all? As he embarked on his journey, the pain of losing Lucy was always with him, an unspoken companion that would shape everything he encountered. In the midst of the rubble and remnants of war, William began to wonder if there was something greater, something beyond the suffering. He was driven not just by the need for answers, but by the hope that somehow, somewhere, he would find the peace he longed for, perhaps a peace that Lucy would have wanted him to discover. Curiosity and discovery. The world beyond the known had always called to William. He had heard rumors of forgotten civilizations, mysterious lands, and ancient secrets hidden deep in the earth, and his insatiable curiosity led him to places others feared to tread. His need to discover the unknown wasn't driven by greed or fame. It was a deeper hunger for understanding. What had the past held? Why had humanity, despite its potential, descended into endless cycles of war and destruction? With each step he took, William uncovered pieces of a vast puzzle, a puzzle that hinted at a lost history, one where humanity had once reached extraordinary heights. Ancient ruins spoke to him, their silence more powerful than any words. Stone carvings and strange artifacts gave him a glimpse into a world that had existed long before his time, and with every discovery, his thirst for knowledge grew. The further he ventured, the more he realized that the world he thought he knew was only a fragment of a much bigger picture. Power and responsibility. But not all knowledge was meant to be wielded carelessly. As William uncovered the secrets of the past, he learned of the Aeons, a civilization far more advanced than his own. The Aeons had mastered technology and wisdom that allowed them to manipulate the very fabric of reality itself. But this power came with a great cost. They had fallen, their civilization crumbling under the weight of their own hubris. Their misuse of knowledge led to greed, division, and ultimately their own destruction. The Aeon's downfall was a cautionary tale, a lesson that echoed through the ages. When William and his crew met the Aeons, they were warned of the dangers of wielding such immense power. The knowledge they had uncovered was not something to be shared lightly. It was too powerful, too dangerous for humanity in its current state. The Aeon's warning was clear. If mankind were to repeat the mistakes of the past, the consequences could be catastrophic. William realized that the knowledge he had uncovered wasn't just a gift, it was a burden to bear with great responsibility to ensure that humanity would never make the same mistakes again. Isolation and civilization. The Aeons represented both a lost civilization and a hope for humanity's future. They were the ghosts of a once great people, now scattered and forgotten, their wisdom and knowledge hidden away in the ruins of time. But the Aeons also believed in the potential of humanity. They saw something in William and his crew, something that hinted at the possibility of redemption. If humanity could learn from the mistakes of the past, if it could rise above greed, war, and division, then perhaps the world could one day reach the heights the Aeons had once known. As William stood before the Aeons, he saw both the tragedy of what had been lost and the possibility of what could be achieved. The civilization they had built was gone, but their legacy remained, waiting to be discovered, waiting for a new generation to learn from it. William realized that the isolation of the Aeons wasn't just a physical distance from humanity, but a metaphor for the isolation humanity had created for itself by ignoring the lessons of the past. He understood now that civilization could be rebuilt, but only if humanity learned to embrace knowledge with humility and wisdom. Through his journey, William uncovered not only ancient knowledge, but a deeper understanding of himself and the world around him. The pain of his loss, the thrill of discovery, the weight of responsibility, and the hope for a better future all intertwined in his quest. And though the world he returned to was still full of uncertainty, William knew one thing for certain. Humanity's future would be shaped by the lessons of the past, and the journey was only just beginning. May your spiritual journey be filled with God's grace and peace. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to inspire others.